And welcome back to Meeting of the Minds. Today I'm here with the great James Purpura, the head lacrosse coach at Virginia Military Institute. James, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Excited to talk some shop today.
Absolutely. Yes, we worked with VMI a few years ago with Chris Krekowitz with the wrestling team. Obviously worked with a lot of lacrosse teams around the country. So I guess we'll kick it off talking about your coaching philosophies. What do you do to help the team get the mental edge, to deal with pressure, to build confidence? I know kind of a big question to start with.
Yeah. I guess the best way to kind of answer that is we believe in foundation. We have 4 core beliefs that really guide our culture and our principles. And first and foremost important one is attitude, and having a positive attitude. And it applies to everything. How do you do that? You show up in a high quality way. That's what that behavior looks like. And if you do that, then ultimately, you're going to be able to handle any circumstances that come your way. So we talk a lot about showing up in a high quality way. We talk about being a pro. What are those people that you admire? What are their habits? What does their skill level look like? How do they prepare? How do they get into that mindless effort where you're not anxious, your optimal level of arousal, you're excited, you're ready for any challenge to face that you could potentially face?
Absolutely. I think about that a lot with, as you said, mindless. You have athletes, a lot of people misunderstand that, but if you have a positive thinker, athlete A, a negative thinker, athlete B, and then a non-thinker, athlete C, lights are on, but nobody's home. They're just responding to what's going on. That's the best one. Not even the positive thinker, the mindless thinker.
Absolutely. We talk about getting in, if you think about any time, whatever sport, I was a hockey guy growing up in upstate New York, and I was actually a goalie. So I always like to think about, there's that stigma of hockey goalies. The reason why I picked up lacrosse was, being an attackman in that, instead of getting scored on all the time in hockey. Hopefully I could score a few goals on other people. But, so much of that position, especially the goaltender, is in your head. Whether it's internal locus control, external locus control, you determine your outcome. And if you think about in any sport, in any position, when you had your best game, what were you thinking? How did you prepare? What was that feeling like? And how can you replicate that over and over and over again?
That's awesome, Coach. That's a big thing we always talk about, actually identifying when your best performances. What were you telling yourself? What were you doing? What did you eat before your competition and during your competition? Not eating, but so much. What were you thinking? And then also at the same time, or on the other hand, rather, your worst competitions. What were you thinking before and during? And what did that look like in comparing and contrasting the two?
Yeah, so I was fortunate when I went to grad school. I took a class in sports psychology, and
awesome.
As a hockey goalie, again, I always relate back to my experiences more so than being a team player in a sport like lacrosse, where there's 9 guys in front of a goaltender. If you're an attackman and you have a bad game, yeah, some people might not even notice. You didn't have as many points as you normally do. You turn the ball over a little bit more. If you have a bad day as a goalie, the whole world knows. And I would think about, when I have my worst game, oh no, we're playing in this rink and I feel like deja vu, or I didn't eat this and now I'm not going to play well. All external locus control versus, I'm ready for the challenge. I'm excited. I'm prepared and confident. And obviously confidence comes from preparation. Next thing you know, you're just wanting to be challenged. You want that opportunity and you're ready for it.
And that makes a lot of sense. And you would expect that, as you bring that up, you would expect that more from a goalie who's used to dealing with all those pressures and having all eyes on them. There's a lot more pressure to figure it out. Absolutely. Right? Other people can hide in different places, but you can't hide. So you got to figure it out.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what are our principles? We have attitude. That was number 1. What do we say was number 2?
Yeah. So we talk about our ACEs mindset. I think acronyms are easy to remember, yes. Like having 17 different words. And we certainly don't want to be a team that, what's your culture? And you point to a sign and that's what it is. Well, no. What is it? So it's attitude, compete, it's effort, and it's sacrifice. We want guys to show up in a positive attitude every single day. We want them to compete at every challenge that they're brought upon. We want them to pay attention to those details. That's going to help them, allow them to have success. We want relentless workers, right? We might not be the smartest staff in the world or the most skilled team in the program, but as a new staff taking over a program, we're certainly going to be the hardest working. Why? Because we can control that. And the last piece of sacrifice, I think what's so important is you always be a team of we and not me. You got to put the team first. You're going to have to make decisions that take away from your personal gain, but in the long run, it's going to make the team better. And I think that's so important to championship caliber programs or teams that win, is having that selfless mindset, always putting the team first mentality.
I really like that. I'm taking notes as I read to grab my pen and jot this down, because it's great. And I'll put this in the show notes too, because I think a lot of our listeners are going to really love this. I like mentioning specifically sacrifice. Of course, everyone talks about the team, the family. I like how you say sacrifice, because that pinpoints what you might be called to do, what everyone's called to do. But, sometimes it's your spot. Sometimes it's an unselfish play, whatever it is, but thinking about it, that it's, like you said, putting the we before the me.
Absolutely. And I think, I know you're a big time wrestler in team sports, especially, right? You're on a lacrosse team, everybody, or hockey, you want to be on the power play, you want to be on the man up, but there's only 6 guys that are on that. And you come from a high school Division I level, your role is probably going to change. And everybody, you might want your role to be something else, but at the end of the day, especially as our young men are getting ready to prepare to come back to campus here and start our preseason next week, we're going to start finding and identifying those roles based on what guys earned throughout the fall and this early preseason. They might not agree with it, but it's what we need as a staff for them to do to put our team in the best position to be successful. And I think what makes a great team, and if you look at Bill Belichick or Nick Saban or so many of the guys who've had success, do your job, right? That's one of the core staples of the Patriot way. And you might not agree with what it is, but your team needs you to do that at 100% for the team to be successful. And you got to be willing to make that sacrifice.
Right. And for that to be part of your core principles, it's in the forefront of their mind. So they know this is part of what it means to be on this team.
Absolutely.
That's great. And I like how we're all looking to coaches sometimes of different sports. Of course, our sport naturally for the specificity, but success leaves clues. It doesn't matter what area, whether it's, a business owner, a different sport, we could get pieces from them, and there's common denominators. They have something in common, all of them, like you said.
Absolutely. I think the older I get, and the longer I've been coaching, and I always like to joke, especially when I'm talking to recruits, I look young, but I have done this for a decent while. So much of it is, you're exactly right? It's all about people. And that's what we came in July and started, our new staff and taken over a younger program that hasn't struggled more recently. I shouldn't say young program, been around for a while. We're going to be a program that, again, it goes to philosophy. I always kind of laugh when you start your approach. You can see some binders behind me. As a young assistant and you work your way up the assistant ladder, you think about, all right, what's our offense going to be? What's our defense going to be? How are we going to handle this situation? But the most important piece is, what's our culture going to be? What's our belief system going to be? And how can we ingrain that and build an environment that's right for personal growth for the young men in our program, so that we are making them and preparing them to be the best version of themselves on and off the field. And why I say that, and tailing it back to what you were saying, is, it doesn't matter if it's the corporate world. It doesn't matter if it's whatever sport. At the end of the day, it's all about building relationships. And that's what we believe in here at VMI. And what we're building is, everything we're going to do is building and fostering and cultivating relationships within the team, the program. And, to be successful, just like the corporate world, it can't just be one unit. It has to be, the athletic staff. It's got to be your trainer, your strength coach. Our strength coach is echoing the ACES mentality to our guys, even in there. And again, you're all singing the same song to the same tune. And that's when you're going to find success, because you have to have alignment.
Absolutely. And I like what you say there about building the culture and building those relationships, because I think the coaches that say, oh, we don't want to focus on that, we want the X's and O's, those coaches quickly find out that they need to go back and work on the culture and on the relationships.
Yeah.
So putting that in the forefront along with the X's and O's.
Absolutely. I went to, I listened to a speaker probably 7 or 8 years ago. And one thing that really stuck with me is they talked about why you get hired. You have kind of a couple of different things. You have character, you have competency, and you have image. Well, your competency and knowing X's and O's and, being the quote unquote sexy pick, and you just led this offense or defense to a big time title. You want to get the assistant coach, whatever. That might get them the job, but that's not going to keep them there. Character is, and how you develop that, and how you pride yourselves, again, going back to relationships and finding the right people and ultimately putting them in a situation to be successful. And you're right. You go to a coaching convention, and I'm sure you've been at these where you got somebody talking about spread offense or air raid and the newest, latest thing. And everybody wants to go over to that because they're like, oh, wow. And you don't see as many people going into like, here, how to build a culture, how to pick core beliefs, how to, build that championship level environment that's going to ultimately allow whatever X's and O's to flourish in what you do. So that's certainly something that we take a lot of pride in here, and especially, myself as a coach, something I just believe in. It always starts with those bedrocks and the standards and building that foundation.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Talk a little bit about the biggest transition that athletes maybe struggle with going from high school to college.
I think, certainly there's a lot of challenges, especially the levels that you go. I think it's such a vulnerable age when you're going from 16, 17, 18. It's the first time away from home for a lot of student athletes. And you go from kind of being the superstar maybe on your high school and the big fish in a small pond to a giant ocean. And now you're just a small fish, and you really got to work your way and kind of beginning that cycle again. So I think, you see being able to really get into healthy habits, habits really define who we are, and being able to set that up really early on. One thing that we do is we meet with all of our players every 3 weeks throughout the semester as a staff, because we want them to know that it's a lot more. Guys are more than just lacrosse players with us, so that if there ever is an issue, whether it's academics, certainly we have a department that works and focuses more on that. But really in life, is there something that's prohibiting you from being your best? We want to find a solution, and we want to fix that. And a lot of that can be fixed early on. I think a lot of people, I'm certainly guilty, is your first semester for a lot of people is your worst academically, because you are being shell shocked. You're coming in, it is harder. You can't just go through the motions. You got to set that foundation early on, find those habits, and get into that, structure to be successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then what about on the field? While they're competing, what are some of the biggest mental struggles or hurdles you see that they have to overcome?
Yeah, I think certainly dealing with, you might be the superstar in high school and you come in and there's an All-American, midfielder ahead of you. And being, I think again, you look for the right people in the recruiting process. You want somebody that's humble and hungry, and sees that humility of, and I think something that's really, really, when you look at winning organizations, is you want your best players to be your best people. And so you identify, if you're a freshman attackman, well, who are you going to look at when you come in? You're going to look at the returning leading scorer on that team. What kind of habits do they have? Well, they go to bed at a decent time. They don't play Call of Duty till 3 a.m. They eat well. They take care of their body. They're getting treatment when they need it. They look to see what it's like to be a pro. And I think for us and what we're trying to build here is we want our best players to be our best people, but we want our hardest working guys, the guys who are watching the most film or doing the most extra work. There should be a direct correlation that they're the best players on the team, right? Back to that effort piece of the Aces, is our hardest working guys and our most competitive guys are probably hopefully going to be the ones that put themselves in the best position to be on the field. So understanding that and learning that early on as a freshman can sometimes be an adjustment. The speed in the game and all of that's obviously going to be different. But at the end of the day, kind of being able to add that in and being humble and hungry and accepting that and then taking it and running with it can be, used to a competitive advantage.
Absolutely. And like you said, and that's what we're all about too. It's taking lacrosse and using it as a vehicle to build virtue, to build character, and those mental skills for life, whether it's competing, whether it's school, business, their personal lives, social, relationships. It's really a very similar thing. And in any just organization, the people who have the character and the virtue, those people get promoted.
And you know what I've really learned at being a place like VMI and military school is not just corporate world, but military. You look at officers and leadership positions there, they love cadet athletes. And I think, not just the military, obviously you alluded to it in the corporate world, CEOs, Fortune 500, being able to be a part of a team, to handle adversity, to embrace a role. I love multi-sport athletes. I was a backup goalie in high school. My role was very different than the starter and very different than being a starting attackman and leading scorer there. My job, but you have to do that job to make, again, going back to that sacrifice piece, to have that team be successful. And when you have people who have kind of done those different things in different sports, been coached by different leaders, it only prepares them for the real world and help them be ready to, we like to say, live a lifestyle of winning.
That's right. That's right. And like you said, the military dimension, that adds something else to it. So, I mean, your school brings something in unique that other schools don't. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I think VMI is a leadership laboratory. You look at West Point and Naval Academy and the service academies. We're going to be similar in that not everybody has to serve in the military that comes here. We certainly have a lot of people that can continue on in the professional world or corporate world. But everybody's going to get some kind of ROTC background while they're here. And I think it's just a great foundation for life. And sometimes it's hard to convince a 16 or 17-year-old that structure and discipline is the best thing for them, but it really gives them that foundation for life. It's going to teach them a lot of the intricate skills that we're going to work with them on. And having been a head coach at a non-military school and now a military school, this school does a great job in helping teach leadership off of the field. And so it's only reinforcing a lot of what we're talking about as a staff on a daily basis with the team. So, learning how to handle adversity. Obviously, they're taking, tactic classes and things of that nature. But again, leadership is such an important skill. Being able to, when our young men graduate, the ones that are commissioning at 22, 23 years old, they're going to be an officer in the United States military. And they're going to be leading people that are older than them, and they're going to be prepared for that challenge.
That's awesome. Such a great thing. And we love what you do over at VMI. Like I said, you're one of our teams that we go way back. Our earliest posters, we have the VMI symbol, right? We have the logo right on there. So we really believe in what you do, and we thank you guys for all of that. COVID period of time, we got to address that. We can't finish without talking about COVID. Uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen this year, next year. How do you keep your athletes both mentally and physically prepared? What are some of your recommendations to them, as well as to high school athletes that are aspiring college athletes?
Well, one of the great things of the ACE mentality, our 4 core beliefs is that control the controllables. You control every one of those 4 things. We talk a lot about, and I'm a big fan of kind of what Tim Kite in Focus 3 podcast talks about. And I've had a chance to listen to him speak before is, taking the E+R=O. We can't control what events we're going to be faced, but how we respond to them is going to, make the best possible outcome. And we're going to all go through certain challenges throughout our life. We're trying to get really, really good at handling that R behavior and how we adapt. Okay, we're not going to be allowed to do this. Okay, well, what's the best scenario that we can do to prepare ourselves to give us the best possible outcome? So we starts a lot with that attitude. Take a positive attitude. Don't feel bad. Don't blame people. Don't complain. Don't get defensive. Just fix. If you're doing that, you're taking away from leading and finding a solution. So we want to be solution orientated. Anything we can do to control our outcome and put us in the best possible situation is going to be what we're trying to teach and lead. I think so much right now, and such an important integral skill is just adaptability for everybody in the world. I could tell you, certainly taking over a program in a COVID era where we haven't been able to have 40 guys in a classroom to do film. We've had to be creative and split into units and do Zoom more and more often. And again, even in the recruiting aspect, I think it's something that we'll actually continue to do. And we're learning, because at first you're like, what's this going to be like? Or, well, again, if you're starting to think about or complain or blame, you're wasting your time on fixing how to be the best version of yourself. So control the controllables. You don't control much, but what we control really matters. And it's important to take a lot of pride in that.
That's right. Awesome stuff. Really great. I'm going to definitely implement a lot of these things, even as a business things you talk about. People don't realize I learned a ton from doing these interviews, and just thank you so much for your time, James. I really appreciate it. Where can we send people your way? Social media pages, websites?
Yeah, absolutely. So our coach _Purpura is I think Twitter and Instagram handles. You can check out VMI _Lacrosse for all of our social media there. And coachpurpura.com is another one that we send a lot of our young men to and our recruits. So I really appreciate you guys having me on. I always love talking about this stuff. And like you, I appreciate people who do podcasts. And I think one of the most, I'm actually reading John Wooden book right now, and the greatest coach of all time, telling you that he learned every single day throughout his career and won obviously over 10 national championships. I think it's such an important skill. And I think it's something that I certainly try to pride myself on. And when I look for assistant coaches, who wants to be the best, who's going to always chase that perfection of trying to learn something new every day. And so I appreciate what you guys are doing, and really happy that I had the opportunity to speak with you guys today.
Absolutely. Any way we can help the team, just let us know. And clearly you've done your homework. You know what you're talking about with all this. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you so much. You guys take care. Have a good one.
Take care, James. We'll see you. Bye.